really appreciate that he counts us in for this.
I know.
You know,
I feel
just
so
that
official.
countdown. It's really good.
It feels official.
It's like having a director. Because we do, in
Yeah.
fact, have one.
You know,
He's-
and you're a
he's
diva,
directing
so
us.
you need a director.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe you don't need a director because you know what to
I'm
do.
more like I need a PA. You know, somebody who's just coming in and like making sure that the green room is set exactly the way that I want it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I used to tell Jill Patton that when we would do the Steubenville East
You
conferences, I would tell her about things that I like. I would give her my rider for the contract of like all the ridiculous things that I wanted. And
Oh,
it was just,
gosh.
obviously it was just a joke because I wasn't actually doing anything.
Right.
Like, so it was just me joking with her that I'm coming up and I'll help you out with this.
You know what's upsetting? I never got to ride a golf cart.
I didn't either.
You didn't either?
No, I never got on a golf cart.
No.
If it makes you feel any better. No. Although they did have, so for the Steubenville East conference, what, like 5 years ago, something like that. They wanted me to say mass for that like young adult or young teenager leadership training thing.
Oh,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
did. I think it's called Lead, or I don't know what
It's
it's
called
called.
Lead. Yeah.
But they wanted me to say mass for them one morning. I of course said yes. I'll be happy to say mass for them. That was the morning that the conference was starting.
Right, because they get there.
They had
early.
been there for a few days already.
Mhm.
Correct. So I was going to say mass for them, and they said, just come down to the lobby of the hotel and your ride will be there to take you over to the place where mass is happening. I'm like, Jill, this is the worst thing you could possibly do, is send me a driver. And it was another one of the volunteers. It wasn't like I was getting in some limousine or anything like that, but I said, yes, I'll be driven over to where I'll be saying mass. And of course I couldn't help myself. I had to just tease her about it. It was great.
That's funny. Oh, that's so good.
No, and it's the whole diva priest thing, which I really like to lean into because it bugs Jill.
What percentage of priests are actually divas?
Very, very few of us. Very, 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 very.
Well, you really are concluding yourself in that.
I mean, a little bit, but really, I do it more like as a joke because it's really funny.
It's so funny.
It's really, really funny.
It's hilarious
to see like when you roll your eyes at somebody's offering you something, you're like, oh, well, I suppose I can take that. You know, it's really fun. It's really, really fun.
I don't mean to be a nuisance, but if you could just like, you know, take a little bit off of that, then that'd be perfect. I'm not asking for much. It's just a little bit of a change.
Right.
I'm still very grateful for what you did, but just change this little thing. Scriptive as or not scriptive. I keep saying that. C.S. Lewis's whole chapter on that.
There are certain things where I found myself more and more now when people are talking about something that's going to happen, or they're telling me things, especially if it's related to the liturgy, and I'm saying mass someplace other than the parish, and they come and say, we're going to do this, we're going to have this thing. I go, no, we're not going to do that. And I just very gently, no, I'm not doing that because that's not part of the mass. We're going to do it this way instead. And oh, okay.
No tambourines here.
Instead of just going along with whatever, like, no, we're going to do this the right way.
Yes. Too many liturgical abuses.
I've gotten a little bit more blunt in my old age.
You are ancient.
I'm ancient of days now.
Yes, you are.
Ancient of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind, Father Sam?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, it's Thanksgiving week. And I'm always grateful for Thanksgiving week. No pun intended.
Okay.
a little bit intended. All right. A little bit intended. No, I like Thanksgiving week because it tends to be a shorter week.
Yes, thank goodness.
In terms of actual labor required. So I don't mind like getting a couple extra days to just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
I get to go down and see mom and dad, my brother, my sister-in-law. So it's going to be nice to hang out with them a little bit. But I guess as I'm kind of like surveying the landscape, first of all, I feel like I've been talking a ton lately. Part of that is we've recorded some extra episodes of The Tangent. And I've got to record one today. And we've been meeting cool people. Yeah.
So cool
people. It has been a lot of fun. But as a result, I feel like I've just been, especially on Mondays. Monday is the talking day for me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. It's just been like lots and lots of talking. And I'm looking forward to a couple of days where I don't really have to talk that much.
Yeah.
You know, but what I'm hoping, this is where I gotta see where my brother's at, right? Because he and I could both just sit there and not say anything for a long time.
It's the best.
And be rather content.
That's nice.
You know, but like,
you guys are two old men now.
Well, like a little bit, yeah. But I think I want to be able to talk to him. So like I've got to see, I can't just sit there and be silent, and he can't just sit there and be silent. So we're gonna have to engage, which is good. It's good for
Your
us.
mom's gonna ask you questions.
Oh yeah, she'll cover both of us without any problem. Yeah. So my grandmother was recently in the hospital. She's doing really well.
Mhm.
But in that time, I discovered just how sharp she really is.
Oh, wow.
The commentary, the running commentary on everything. She's so alert. It's fantastic.
Mm.
And she's funny.
How old is she?
94.
Whoa.
Yeah, Graham's 94.
Wow.
But she's really funny. She's like constant jokes.
Really?
She's cracking jokes left and right the whole time. It was amazing.
Oh, that's funny.
And she had some really, honestly, you go to hospital sometimes and you're like, I don't know how well they're taking care of this person who I'm visiting.
Mm-hmm.
She was surrounded by some really outstanding doctors and nurses and physical therapists and everything. They really took care of her. They were great.
Yeah.
I was really very, very grateful for them.
They're
very nice people. Yeah, it was good. Good. So other than that, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot on my mind. I'm doing a talk tomorrow for the young adults down in the Stamford area for their Theology on Tap. So my topic is going to, are you coming?
No.
That's okay.
Because it's Stamford.
I'm not offended. It's your home city. And it's the place that gave birth to your faith. And
it did. Well, I guess it kind of did. It did and it didn't.
It didn't. You're right. You're right.
Let's not go that far and give it that much credit.
No, but I'm going to talk about keeping an eternal perspective in a chaotic world.
I heard.
It's the idea that here, maybe we can just like rough draft it here.
Actually, no, it's perfect because I actually wanted to talk about something like that today. This is great.
If we look around at the world, let's look outside the church.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see lots of chaos in the world right now. We've got
really.
I know it's crazy.
Weird.
Right? We've got like Israel and Hamas and all this craziness there. We've got Ukraine and Russia and that conflict. We've got conflicts in so many different places. The church is being persecuted like crazy in Nigeria. The situation with China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and all of that craziness. And the fact that honestly, the church has not done a great job of supporting the underground church in China. And the China-Vatican agreement is a real diplomatic disaster. There's those issues. Yeah. There's conflicts in so many places around the world. Mm-hmm. So just if we're looking at the perspective of world peace, we're seeing a lot of chaos and a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Then we turn our attention maybe more close to home, and we're going to see, I don't know if you know this, but the political landscape in the United States of America is an absolute nightmare.
You don't say.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it's a vicious hellscape, and it's getting worse by the day.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've had some craziness there.
Yeah.
Then we can look and see. Let's just take like one's personal life, and any one of us out there. We're facing all kinds of personal challenges and difficulties and things. Mm-hmm. And then if we look at the church, if you're a faithful Catholic and you're striving to live out your faith, and you're going to look at the church and you're going to see the synod on synodality, which is insanity. And then you're going to see
so much confusion.
Well, lots of confusion and inconsistency, things that don't really seem to jive with one another, and things that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
Decisions being made that don't quite make sense.
Or a lack of transparency, which might be the really greatest challenge facing this particular pontificate is the lack of transparency, but transparency in other things. So there, again, inconsistent transparency. Mm-hmm. I was just reading an article that pointed out that the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith has been publicizing a lot of different responses that normally go completely unnoticed. It's a document. Here's an answer to your question, mm-hmm. and it's kept private, and not for any like secrecy or anything like that, but these have all been getting publicized recently, which is really interesting because maybe there's a need for some transparency there. Clarity. Maybe there's not, but there's nevertheless, now we're seeing more and more stuff getting published. But on the other hand, you have these situations where there ought to be transparency and there's not.
Interesting.
So it's leaving a lot of questions about why isn't there more transparency about Father Marco Rupnik? Why isn't there more transparency about Bishop Joseph Strickland?
Right.
And the things that have happened there. And on the one hand, you have Bishop Strickland, who it would appear has been removed from office without any real reason being given.
Right.
Father Rupnik is incardinated back into a diocese, even though he is clearly guilty of sexual assault and all kinds of other terrible things. So you're going, what the heck is going on?
Serenity now.
Yeah. And that's why I started thinking about, for this young adult night, this Faith on Tap. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, they call it Faith on Tap.
I think Theology on Tap is
it's trademarked.
Copyrighted. Yeah, so we can't use it.
Anyway, Faith on Tap.
Faith on Tap. So for this Faith on Tap talk, what I want to do is address the idea of, in all of this chaos, how do we keep an eternal perspective?
Right.
How do we keep our eyes focused on God?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
The world is cray cray.
Well, what I come to with all of that is actually a lot of the stuff that I've been studying over this last year, leading up to my graduation. I saw you looking at my very fancy
Not just
diploma
looking,
that I
you
got.
literally came
I
and
know,
brought it to
I put it right in front of you, so
right
you'd
in
have no
front of me.
choice but to look at it.
Exactly. It's like,
I'm
come
not,
and admire the thing
I'm
that
not a diva priest or anything like that.
No,
but
no, not at all. Not at all. It's a beautiful piece of glass.
Isn't it nice?
With wood.
Yeah. There's my diploma.
Where are you gonna put it? You need a mantle with Greg's picture right next to it.
Just a mantle
and a candle.
I'm just gonna make a mantle.
Make a little mini altar.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, what I want to talk about is actually like one of the really important things when we're doing mentorship with somebody.
Yeah.
Right. Is we don't pretend like the emotional responses and experiences that they're having aren't there.
Yeah.
But how often do we go, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be more charitable. Or I shouldn't be so upset by this. I should be more like this. So we immediately start to judge ourselves for how we're feeling about something. Hey, guess what? You're feeling that way.
Yeah. So we repress what we're actually feeling.
Right. But instead of like speaking to ourselves with that judgment, what if we just started with, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Yeah. And so I have my own personal feelings about what's going on. Yeah. Then we can add to that and say, let's look around and acknowledge the reality of what's happening around us. Yeah. The chaos of the world, the division, the things that are pulling at our attention, and the places where we then feel unmoored and unsteady because I don't know what I should believe. You listen to the news or you try to find answers to things. And honestly, we're at the point now of just not trusting anything because we can't tell. You
can't. Right. You literally, you cannot.
And that's very painful. That's a very painful experience to realize
what is
that
reality? I don't know anymore.
Right. Right. And I want to be able to just say, this is
I want to know
the truth. Right.
Right.
But it's not so clear. And it's not so easy.
No.
So if that's the case, that we've got all of this stuff going on, that there's chaos, confusion, etc. Yeah. I want to be able to speak some kind of truth into that. I want to be able to find where God is present in all of that. Yes. Yeah. And so this is where first I just have to be able to acknowledge what's happening. Then recognizing what's going on around me, how I'm feeling about it, before I dive into what's the knee-jerk reaction today to everything.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to.
But the default setting for most of us is outrage. Oh yeah. It's way easier to just fly off the handle, get angry about something, fire off a nasty email, leave a snarky comment or a 1-star rating. The default position is now outrage.
This was me last week. Yeah, I had too much going on last week.
Were you outraged?
No, although
were you defaulting to outrage?
No. See, there was so much happening.
Were you on the receiving end of those who had defaulted to outrage?
People had just become annoying. That's what because so much was happening.
I think that's in the Bible. I think Jesus tells his disciples at one point, people will be annoying.
He should have said that, but you know what?
I think
he probably did tell them, but it's not written because John said not everything here was written. And I was like, okay, well, he definitely said it then. But it was oh, hello, Dookie. Yeah, so Monday, my great aunt was getting discharged from the hospital. She had debilitating migraines and was also partly suicidal. Oh. And so she had been in the hospital for almost a month. I had to go take her. I thought it was going to be a quick 2-hour thing. Turned into 7 because she lives with my other 2 great aunts. So then I had to go take that great aunt, drive her all the way down to the next day to the airport to go back to Colombia to spend the rest of her days with her kids. So it was just dealing with that situation. Then the next day it was with my mom. My mom has cirrhosis. What does that look like? Taking her to her doctor's appointments, but also mental health makes it more difficult. Right. So then the next day, take my other great aunt who had fell the week before or that week because she broke her shoulder. And then my other aunt, this is all within a week. My other aunt fell, who usually takes care of my great aunts, but she fell down the stairs, broke her rib, and fractured her 3 vertebrae, her lower vertebrae. So it was one thing after another, and it just kind of went. And I was like, okay, 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 well, okay, so I guess this kind of falls on me for right now because my other cousin is in Mexico. She can't do anything here. My cousin needs to stay here with my aunt because she can't walk by herself because she's hurting. And it was literally it was like a domino effect of
That's a
all these
nightmare.
things. It now this is what surprised me throughout last week. And then there were some couple things, when people just kind of annoy you because they're not respecting boundaries or they're not aware of the boundaries.
Sure.
And you're just like,
Yep. Yep.
and so it kind of ticks you off because you're already spent elsewhere.
I'll give you an example though of a spot where like I was really proud of myself for holding a boundary
Mm-hmm.
recently. It was a stupid thing, really, really small,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just really proud of myself. I'm gonna brag.
Yeah.
Okay, you okay?
Yeah.
You okay with me bragging for a second?
You're the diva.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Thank you. Yeah. No, you're right. You're
I'm just
right.
here to affirm.
I want to lean into that then. No, I got a phone call from somebody, and they were asking a calendar question about the parish. And now I could have looked at the calendar,
Mm-hmm.
but I said, no, I'm not going to do that because then I'm going to start running the calendar, and that's not actually
No, you do not want to do that.
That's not actually what I want to do, nor is it actually good.
No.
Like, it's actually really important that the calendar run through one central location.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you're going to have to call Kathy.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And I held that boundary.
That's good.
And I was really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a little bragging.
No, it's good. Because here's what's
I
difficult.
don't want you to be jealous of me or anything, though.
No, because I held a boundary too, and I
Good
made a
job.
boundary. And I was like, Paula, what? I'm like learning how to become the no ninja. That's my new thing.
No ninja?
The no ninja.
I've never heard that before.
Yes.
Is this a thing that's often said?
I don't know, but it should be. It's like, no. And it's okay. Because I'm too much of a yes. But here's what that means. It means that I get depleted more. I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
I have nothing really to give. And then there's no proper space for me to kind of, it just doesn't allow for me the space to process like what I'm actually feeling, because then I just take on other things that people are thinking, or like, I need help with this. And it's like, like I need to not do that. And that's okay. And it's okay to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that was the gift of last week. There's a lot of grace, though it was literally, I was like, right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's always got to be right before Thanksgiving.
And then like, oh gosh, and then on top of that, I have a family member who's planning on like divorcing, and I'm just like, the holidays just suck.
I always joke with the funeral directors that right around Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, everybody dies.
Gosh, like they're holding out.
That's where, no joke.
Yeah.
You always end up with, there's always a funeral the week of Christmas.
That's crazy.
There's always a funeral right after New Year's. There's always a funeral right around Thanksgiving time. We've had 3 in the last week.
Wow.
Always. It's just how it goes.
It's how it goes.
Yeah.
But now in the midst of that storm, and we're sending a message to Dr. Brian, I was like, I understand now why mindfulness matters. Because when everything around you is chaotic, God is constant.
Right.
God doesn't change. God is always present.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the greatest gift of last week. Just seeing how I reacted to that whole situations. Okay. It was a lot of stuff. And I wasn't questioning God's presence. I wasn't questioning God's plan. It was God was giving the grace to enter into this mess, but from a detached place, not in the sense like I'm so detached that I don't care. Is I'm detached where I can be present, and I'm also present to God who's present to me, and that's the place that I'm operating from. Totally different from last year when I had another family situation and it derailed me for like almost a week, like emotionally, mentally. And so the amount of healing that has happened in the last year to just be like, oh, okay, that happened. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. Now it still was wearing on me. Like I still had to be like, this is burning me out. This is a lot. But it wasn't completely like ruining the way that I was functioning every day. Yeah. So I mean, it's just a simple thought. Like Wednesday was a difficult time. It was the night of the Eucharistic revival that we had, and taking my mom up to go see the doctor. But there was issues in the car and things that I can't control what she does, literally what she does or what she says. And it was just so heavy. And then coming back here tonight to get ready for the revival, and I thought to myself, I think if I hadn't gone through this mentorship and I hadn't gone through understanding what I needed to heal from, I think I would have been so affected by that morning's trip with my mom. I don't know if I would have been able to come back to the office because I would have been so emotionally all over the place.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have been so like in self possessed and
self-possessed, not in self,
right.
possessed,
No,
like
not,
separate
no,
word,
no,
like
no,
by
no.
the devil. No, that's not what we're talking about. Right. Okay, just want to make sure we're clear. Yeah,
Gosh,
that's important.
no, possession of self. And but it is, but when you think about the saints, and they had this ability to accept reality for what it was, enter into it, but with confidence in God's constant presence.
Yeah.
God is there. God is my Father. God is taking care of this situation. And He's providing grace for that situation. He's providing grace for that moment so that you can still walk into it. And it also feels like, like they talk about, like, be built up in the armor of God. Like it feels like that too. I forgot where he talks about the armor of God in scripture. St. Paul. Yeah. And you're constantly being edified by the Spirit, and the Spirit is edifying you in these situations. And so, it's such a gift. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the Christian paradox. Like everything could be going to shit because it literally can.
You're going to get us the explicit rating.
You wanted that, right?
No.
But that no,
Chris is going to have to bleep stuff,
no,
and now we're going to have
Chris,
problems.
No, because it feels like
this is
that.
not suitable for children now. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Actually, wait, fun fact, one time I was in Mass in college, and like it was supposed to be ship.
Yeah.
And the priest ended up saying
it happens.
It happens. It's totally fine. But because sometimes, yeah, it's just real life. It's like sometimes it just sucks and you just don't know what to do. But to see God's gift of just being like, I'm here.
Right.
Like, I'm always here. You don't have to lean on your own understanding, on your own self-sufficiency. Like, I'm your Father.
Yeah.
I have you. And guess what? I also give you grace.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you were talking about before that I thought was really a very important point. And it's relating to boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That these boundaries, so there's interpersonal boundaries that we have to have so that we can maintain our relationships appropriately, so that we can do the things that need to be done without getting sucked into a lot of dysfunction and chaos interpersonally.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think, a way, and this goes back to what I want to try to talk about tomorrow night when I give this talk. You're going to have to pray for me that I get this all through, get it all out there.
Okay.
But something that I want to talk about is the idea that we have to set boundaries for ourselves too, with what is really something that's actually going to impact us directly.
Yeah.
So can we default to outrage and to public outrage?
Yeah.
So our default position more and more is to be upset about everything going on in the entire world all around us, especially things that we have absolutely no control over. And part of that's a function of our globalized society and the way that information travels, and we're able to get access to things more frequently, faster. We're able to know about stuff that once upon a time we would have no idea was happening at all.
Right.
And what that's done is it's made us take, in a certain way, a very healthy, broad look at the entire world.
Yeah.
But in a very unhealthy way, it's taken our focus off of the stuff that's actually right in front of us.
Facts. Yeah.
It's taken our focus away from the things that are here and now, things that I can actually do.
Yeah.
And so when we get all focused on all of this stuff going on everywhere else, we forget about what's happening right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
So spiritually, that means we get focused on things that we have absolutely no control over. We start to question our faith. We start to question ourselves. We start to, in many ways, lose sight of God present because we're looking at all of this chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
And we forget that God is here with us now.
Literally the
like
eternal
in
now.
this place, right?
Yeah.
And where am I going to find Jesus? I'm going to find Jesus in the tabernacle at my parish, at this church that I'm in right now. That's where I'm going to find God. The sacraments come to me today.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to go to Mass and receive the living God in the Eucharist who comes to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go someplace far, far away to get that. It's right here. It's local. I have the ability here in this moment to pray.
Yeah.
And to find God present. I can open up my Bible and there's the word of God speaking to me through the scriptures.
Yeah.
I don't have to go and look in all these other wild and crazy places. The same thing happens to us when we look politically at things. We look at what's happening in Washington, D.C. We look at the federal level.
Yeah.
We forget that there's actually things that we can do right here locally that have nothing to do with partisan politics
Right.
and have everything to do with trying to build up a community,
trying
to make things better.
Sorry.
I
don't even know what my mayor is.
Do you really want to have like a running commentary on the disaster that is the city of Bridgeport's politics? The fact
so
that
much
it is
potential.
No, there's not. There is no potential there, and there's no potential there precisely because of the political machine that runs that city. Come on.
There's potential for the city.
The city should be a beautiful and
It
thriving
should
place.
be a beautiful, because there's so
And
many
it will
beautiful
not
things.
be so long as people think that the politicians who run that city are actually doing it for anything good.
I know. Yes. Anyways,
we need some heroes in there. We really do. And I think, oh my goodness, what great things could happen. But besides that, when we can look locally to things and recognize this is what can happen if we step up, if we do things. It happens in the church too. In the life of the church, Ultramontanism is a real serious thing. So have I talked to you about Ultramontanism?
No, I've never heard this word.
So Ultramontanism means across the mountains.
Oh,
right? And so it's this old habit in the life of the church to sort of refer everything to Rome. So beyond, like, you have the Italian peninsula, and it's basically the Italian peninsula is cut off from the rest of Europe by the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Right. So across the mountains, from over the mountains. So Ultramontanism is this reference back to all things Roman, to overemphasize the papacy, to overemphasize the Pope in such a way that whatever the Pope says, that's it. That's the only thing that there is. Instead of recognizing that the way that the church understands herself is that the church is, yes, united in Rome.
Right.
And in the person of the Pope, we find this symbol, this sign, this source of unity.
Right.
In a very real way, Peter remains here in the life of the church,
right,
and he is the vicar of Christ. And
right,
so that's the place that we do have ultimate reference.
right.
But everything doesn't get referred to Rome.
Mm.
And so this idea of always looking to the highest authority is very not Catholic, actually.
Interesting.
You look to the local authority. So the idea of looking to your bishop, looking locally within your own diocese, looking to your pastor, to your own parish. And so instead of always kind of thinking, well, what's the Pope saying right now? That's not actually how the church has ever understood herself. But Ultramontanism has been a tendency in the life of the church for centuries. Yeah. There's this tendency to always kind of look to Rome, look to the Pope, and see what he's doing, what's going on there. And that will determine how we approach lots of other things. Now, in a certain way, that can be very good when you have the Pope. Like John Paul II was so inspiring. Yeah. Globally inspiring. He goes to Poland and he destroys communism. No big deal. He just brought down the Soviet Union, with some help from Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. But like he basically brings down global communism. Again, not like a big thing or anything, but it was a thing that happened, okay? The historical record demonstrates that John Paul II went to Poland. He supported the Solidarity movement publicly. And within the space of a decade, communism was coming apart at the seams.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You can have a very dynamic figure who makes a huge difference. And there's nothing wrong with giving attention there. So there's nothing wrong with looking to the Pope. There's nothing wrong with looking to Rome for that influence. But there is something wrong if we abdicate our responsibility to grow in holiness right here.
Heck yeah.
And there is something wrong if we abdicate our responsibility to govern and to live according to what the church is and teaches right here. And there is a problem when that focus on everything happening across the mountains, or in our case, across the Atlantic, there is a problem when our focus is always there and never on preaching the gospel here and now.
Right. Because that's what you'll see. That's where the reformers in the church, usually one or two people doing what they were supposed to do.
And it's always local.
And it's always local.
It's always in the church here, and it's always with this group. Exactly. And then that group is going to go out and proclaim the gospel.
Right. And so the greatest gift that you can give to yourself is to focus on your own holiness.
Yeah. And so
That's all the Lord is asking.
in a chaotic world, the way that we keep an eternal perspective that is thinking about God present, focusing on what Jesus is asking us to do, the way that we keep that sense that our eyes are fixed on a prize that is much bigger than something earthly, is we just have to acknowledge the reality in front of us. Here's the chaos of the world. We got to acknowledge how we're feeling about it, because there are certain things that just get me fired up and angry and frustrated. There are some things that I wish that I could control, and I just want to make it happen according to my plan and my vision. I got to be able to acknowledge all of that. And then acknowledging everything that's happening, recognizing what's going on. I bring this into prayer and say, all right, Lord, show me what I can do here.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of things that are out of my control. It's the prayer of John the 23rd, right? Lord, I'm going to bed. It's your church.
I love that.
You take care of it.
Such a great prayer.
It's fantastic.
It's a good prayer.
And you know, I think we overuse that story a little bit in the life of the church.
I don't know if people know too much about it.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of this funny anecdote of John the 23rd, just recognizing that I'm going to bed. Lord, it's your church. You take care of it.
Yeah.
Right. To recognize there's some things I can't do. I can't take care of. I can't make any better, or I can't change.
Right.
So Lord, you take care of it.
Yeah.
But when we can do that in this like very real, very close, very local way, it's going to transform everything.
It is. And it's a spiritual reality too. Like, as I focus on my own healing, I actually heal the church. As I become a saint, like, what is that? What's the thing? I forget where he talks about it in scripture, but like, when we sin, we actually hurt the rest of the body of Christ. But when we're healed, and when we actually practice virtue and become and live that life of holiness, like, we actually heal the body of Christ. So we heal the universal church. And it's just incredible that it's not always going to be out there. It's going to be within.
Right.
And it's going to be like, am I loving my family? Am I like growing in virtue? Am I living a life of grace, united closer to the sacraments? And like, Jesus, like, what are you asking me to do today? You know, how do you want me to be present to you today, or to love today? But the enemy's always going to be like, focus on this, focus on that, focus on that. So it's actually really simple, which in that though,
isn't it frustrating how simple it is and how like easily we miss it? Oh, it shouldn't be that difficult, but guess what? It is.
Yes, but it's also it's hopeful. Yeah, because if you focus on all these things, you're like, you easily fall into despair and hopelessness. But when you look at yourself and you're like, actually, okay, I can do that. I can work on loving like the people in my life. I can work on being this vessel of grace so that others might encounter the Lord. And for myself, like, okay, there's hope there. It's different.
It is, but you're absolutely right. There's a hope. There's a reality that I can do this. That makes a huge difference.
Do you know the story about the family that got canonized? They were during World War II. They were really popular. Their story had just come out. I don't know if you know.
I know of. I don't know I can't think of the name right now.
I can't think of the name.
And
do you know the story?
No. If we prepared a little bit for this podcast, we might be able to remember stuff like that.
We ever prepare?
That's a good point. We don't prepare. It's so much more fun that way. So anyway, famous family, Polish.
They were Polish.
I believe they were Polish, right? They could
have
been German, though. They could have been German. I have no idea.
They could have been. Okay.
Again, I can't tell you enough how little prepared I am to discuss this particular story that you are thinking of right now.
It just made me.
What's great is I know exactly what you're talking about, and their story is very inspiring. So, folks, look up "family canonized World War II," and you'll find something, I'm sure.
You'll find out if they're Polish or German.
Yeah, exactly.
But they house Jews. I think that was part of it. But anyways, probably have to look into them a little bit more.
Yeah, instead of talking about it, let's not belabor this point. Yeah, because we don't know anything, and I can't emphasize how little we know about this topic. But
oh gosh, you know what amazes me still, and as we're sharing testimonies in church, I think what amazes me is that God is still converting. God is still raising people from the dead. God is still calling people to him. In the midst of all this, God's not done working. And that's really cool. So how special these revival nights are that we get to listen to somebody's testimony as a reminder that, wow, God is still working.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not in this like blanket sense. He is intimately involved in everybody's life, leading them deeper into conversion, deeper into healing. And the greatest thing that we can do right now, I guess, honestly, this is my own thing. And you know, like, I love stories. I love people being equipped to share their story,
Mm-hmm.
because it's always going to glorify the Lord. It's always going to be a reminder of like, God is working. I'm not alone. And that, yeah, he is with me. He's working in my life personally. And so I guess when we lose sight of that, when we lose sight of like God's involvement and the ways that his fatherhood is so involved in the details of our life, it's because we're scared that we feel abandoned. Like, well, it's up to me to figure this out. I need to fix this, or I need to worry about this, because who's going to worry about me?
Mm-hmm.
And like, when we forget God's fatherhood, we look out, we start getting focused and caught up on all these other things. But being able to tell the stories, being able to share the testimonies, being reflective of how the Lord is working in your life personally, it's like, oh, he's here. He's always been here. I love this line that Jesus says in John. He says, "The Father and I are working still."
Mm.
It's such a beautiful line. So even when you don't see what's happening, you don't understand it, Jesus says, "The Father and I are working still."
Yeah, it's a present reality.
It's always it always is, and
That's
always
really
will
good.
be. Yeah.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right. That's what I got for today.
Well, I'm glad we were able to rough draft your talk for tomorrow
night.
night.
Thank you for that. I'll work out a couple other things that I want to put in there, but
yeah,
I don't want the talk to go for too long either.
No.
Like, the intention is not for a super long talk, because I want to leave them some time for Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, especially with some of the chaos right now, there might need to be some space to ask questions.
Yeah.
And then to like discuss from there.
For sure. That makes sense.
It's hard when the church gets chaotic like this. It's hard when the world gets chaotic like this, and it's hard when both are chaotic at the same time.
And that's when you know saints are coming.
Yeah, no, for real. That's the thing.
That's like, oh, it's tough. All right, that means saints are here.
But here's the thing: we can't just sit there and say, "Oh yeah, the saints will come."
We are the saints.
We have to be those.
We
saints.
have to be the saints.
That's the call. That's what Jesus is asking right now. It's like, all right, then get holy real fast. Let's go.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Call the podcast "Get Holy" real fast.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, Paula.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. Acción de gracias.
Acción de gracias.
I'm not Spanish, but yeah.
It's all good. Neither am I. Just so we're clear. Just in case anybody thought could possibly have mistaken this for Spaniard.
I mean, you could be. You're white, so.
It's true, but not quite like Spaniard.
Not Spaniard, yeah. There's a look.
There's a look.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Because when I went to Colombia, I was like, oh, there's a look here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they look like my family. Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's cool. It was really cool.
I remember there was a family coming here from Spain, and I hadn't met them yet.
Yeah.
And I saw them at Mass, and I was like, that's them.
They're
right there.
Yeah.
And I just knew.
Isn't that fascinating?
There's a look. Nothing wrong with that.
No, it's not, but you can you can see it. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh yeah, look at that. That's cool.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Paula.
Okay. Thanks, Father.